Part 1. The Gate That Holds. The sun settled gently over the Calloway farm like it had for nearly 100 years, painting the wheat stubble gold and softening the outlines of the old barn. Henry Calloway, now 73 and lined like the land he tilled, finished his supper of potatoes and onions, gave a biscuit to his dog Rufus, and rose for his nightly walk. It had become his ritual, this evening patrol along the perimeter of his family's land, not to watch for trespassers. There were none, but to see that the gate in the fence, the one separating his field from the abandoned tract beyond, remained shut. The fence itself was a relic, posts leaning like weary old men, planks rotted and sagging. Brambles choked the lower rails, and vines coiled the upper ones like veins of time. But the gate, made of narrow slats and rusted hinges, had never warped. It closed cleanly, clicked into place. Every night, Henry gave it a gentle push, checked the latch, and whispered, still holding. On the other side of the fence lay what used to be the neighbor's field, land long surrendered to thistle, foxes, and wild grass. The family who once lived there vanished after the war. The house burned down in a winter accident no one much talked about anymore. But the land remained, untended and haunting, as if waiting for someone. On this night, the air was cool and dry, the cicadas quieter than usual. Henry stood by the gate longer than he meant to, watching how the moonlight lay like silver lace across the overgrowth. He could almost see his son Jacob, as a boy, perched on the fence rail, boots swinging, asking questions about everything. How rain worked, why fences needed gates if no one used them. That was long ago, before the arguments, before the accident. Henry turned to go, gave the gate one last tug, and walked back toward the house. Rufus lingered at the gate, sniffing. When Henry called him, he came, reluctantly. The next morning, Henry rose with the sun as always, put the kettle on, scratched Rufus's ears, and walked out with his mug of tea. But when he reached the fence, he stopped cold. The gate was open, not wide, just enough to break its perfect line. No wind had been strong enough. No latch was broken. And Henry had been sure, absolutely sure, he had closed it the night before. There was a single footprint in the dirt. Not fresh, not fully formed, but clear enough to freeze something in his chest. Henry stood for a long time, staring through the open gate into the field beyond. The grass didn't move. The trees didn't creak. But something had changed. The gate had held for decades, until now. And somewhere deep inside him, something else, something quieter and long ignored, clicked open too. Part 2, The Field That Whispers. Henry didn't sleep that night. Not really. He sat in his old recliner near the fire, cup of cold tea in one hand, watching the darkness press against the windows. Every creak in the walls, every rustle from outside, seemed to draw his eyes toward the door. Around midnight, Rufus growled low and curled up by the hearth, ears perked. But nothing came. At dawn, Henry pulled on his boots and coat and returned to the fence. The gate was closed again. No footprints, no wind-blown trail, just a perfect seam. Still, something itched in the back of his neck, a feeling he couldn't swat away like a fly. He fetched a hammer and nails, braced the gate with a crossbar, tied it shut with baling wire, spoke to it. Stay closed now. Enough of this nonsense. But that night, the gate was open again. Henry stared at it, stunned. The crossbar lay neatly in the grass, not broken, just placed aside. The wire coiled like a sleeping snake. The gate itself hung open by inches. Not a gust of wind, not a soul in sight. He didn't cross it. Not yet. He simply stared through to the wild field beyond, to the trees now half silver in the moonlight, to the sway of tall grass that moved like breath. And then it hit him, so sudden, so sharp, he nearly staggered. Lemon and wood smoke. Jacob's shampoo. The one Henry used to buy him every Christmas. The scent danced across the night air like a whisper through hay. It shouldn't be there. Couldn't be. But it was. And then came the sound. Footsteps. Not heavy, not rushed. Just a soft, steady rhythm from the field, drawing closer. Rufus whined at the back door, but didn't bark. The dog knew something Henry hadn't yet admitted. Over the following days, the pattern repeated. By morning, the gate was always closed, but each night it would open again, and with it came something more. A swing swaying under the old sycamore without wind. A muddy boot print on the porch that vanished by midday. The faint sound of a harmonica in the stillness before dawn, the very one Jacob had carried everywhere as a boy. Henry didn't tell anyone. Who would he tell? The village didn't visit much. He had no wife to worry for him, no neighbors who'd ask questions. The land had been his only companion since Jacob's accident, and now even it seemed to be stirring. He started sitting by the gate, sometimes for hours, just listening, and it listened back. Not with words, but with memory. The fence that had divided land for years was changing, becoming something else, not just a boundary, a border between what had been and what still wanted to be known. Part 3. The things left unsaid. Henry didn't know what kept drawing him to the gate, only that he couldn't stop. The breeze had begun to shift, carrying more than scent now. It carried memory. Whole conversations echoed in his ears that hadn't been spoken in decades. Jacob's voice, crisp and earnest, asking if he could plant his own row of beans. Henry's own response, too curt. "You'll mess it up. Let it be." He regretted those words now. They were among the many left unsaid and then never taken back. The gate stayed open for the third night in a row. Henry didn't fix it this time. He stood beside it, one hand resting on the wood. The hinges didn't creak anymore. Instead, the gate opened like it was being welcomed, by the wind or by something else. And still, Henry didn't cross it, but he began tending the abandoned field just beyond. Not all of it, just a corner, near the fence. Something compelled him. He brought his hoe, cleared the thickest thistles, unearthed the weeds. He told himself it was for the sake of tidiness. Then he found it. Buried beneath the surface, rusted but still whole, was a tiny toy tractor, Jacob's, the one he'd cried over for days when he lost it. Henry remembered snapping at him. "It's just a toy, boy. Let it go." But Jacob hadn't let it go, and apparently neither had the land. Henry sat in the dirt, clutching the rusted thing in his weathered hand. He didn't cry, not quite, but something in his chest crumbled a little. Back at the house, he unearthed an old cedar box tucked in the attic. Inside were photos, drawings, and something he hadn't seen since the funeral. A letter, sealed but never opened, never delivered, addressed to him in Jacob's handwriting. He read it with shaking hands. It wasn't long, just an apology. A confession of wanting to make things right. An invitation to sit, just once, and talk like they used to before everything went wrong. "If you're still my dad," the letter ended, "I'll be waiting at the fence." Henry folded it gently, as if it might break. He walked outside, placed the letter inside a tin, and set it by the open gate. That night, the harmonica returned. The same tune Jacob used to hum when feeding the calves. The notes floated through the tree. Part 4, the gate swings both ways. By the fourth week, Henry stopped checking the gate to see if it was open. He began to expect it. It was no longer an intrusion but a presence. Constant, gentle, impossible to ignore. The field beyond had softened in his eyes. What once looked wild and empty now felt sacred, like a page only half written. That morning, Henry laid an old flannel shirt across the gatepost, the one Jacob used to steal from the clothesline when the nights were cold. He stood there for a long while, then turned back to the barn. By dusk, the shirt was gone. No wind, no animal could have carried it away. It had been folded neatly on the gate's far side. Henry's breath caught in his throat. He didn't speak. He only reached out and gently touched the spot where it had lain. It was still warm. Each night that followed, Henry left something new: an apple, polished red like Jacob used to love; the harmonica, dented but still whole; a sketch Jacob had made as a boy of their old tractor. Every morning, something was returned. A tune played faintly in the wind, the apple core resting beneath the sycamore. A pencil line added to the sketch, more detailed than Jacob could have drawn back then. Time, it seemed, was folding in on itself. And finally, one still night, Henry stepped through the gate. It didn't creak. The grass didn't resist. He walked as if following a trail only his heart recognized, past the brambles, past the thistles he hadn't cleared, to the center of the field, now glowing with fireflies. The moon hung low, swollen with memory. And there he was, Jacob, 17, as he had been that summer. Jeans too short, hair unkempt, eyes like autumn storms. He sat atop the broken rail of the far fence, harmonica in his lap, gaze distant. Henry didn't speak. Neither did Jacob. They walked the field in silence, side by side, like they had when Henry was still teaching him how to plant rows, before words got sharp and hearts got stubborn. The air between them said what they hadn't. As they neared the gate again, Jacob paused. "Dad," he said, voice low and steady, "you never stopped checking, even when I left." Henry swallowed the lump in his throat. "I was waiting to forgive, or to be forgiven. I never could tell which." Jacob smiled, crooked and soft. "Maybe both." Then he was gone. No wind, no shimmer, just absence. Henry stood alone in the field as the fireflies blinked around him. He didn't cry, not then. Instead, he walked back to the gate, latched it gently, and kissed the top rail. The fence wasn't broken anymore. It was something else entirely. A threshold, not for endings, but for return.